Now we are going to discuss about matrices, right? So I'm going to write here a matrix, how a matrix looks like. So this is how a matrix looks like. A matrix is a collection of elements represented in a 2D manner, and these are the number of columns, and you can see that zeros in it was 0, 1 and 2. So the index position starts from 0, that's why I have written 0, 1 and 2, which are the index position of the rows, and similarly the columns also have the index position, right? So let's create a matrix in Python. So we are going to use the list implementation to create a matrix, and more we're going to use a nested list, right? So first row has 1 2 3, the second row has 4 5 and 6, and last row is represented as 7 8 and 9. So this is how you can create a matrix in Python. And so if you want to display a particular element of this matrix, you just need to provide the index position. So if you you will provide 1 here, let's print this value. So you can see here it displays 4 5 6. So when you are going to write 1 here, since the index position starts from 0, the first row will get displayed. So the first the 1 will represent the first row, so it is going to print the first row. So if you want to just display a particular element, we are going to provide its coordinates in form of rows and column. First we are going to define the row, and then we can define some column like 1 and 2. So the row is 1 and the column is 2, that means the element is 6. So it is going to print out 6 in the output, which you can see here, 6 is there in the output. So what I'm just going to do here is, now we are going to study tuples in Python. So tuples are basically list. So I'm going to write a very important note here that strings are immutable and lists are mutable. We know this thing. So let me just define what exactly a tuple is. So tuple is basically a list, but an immutable list. So a tuple is basically an immutable list. That means you cannot use the assignment in a tuple, right? So in order to create a tuple, you can use the keyword tuple. Sorry, you don't need to use the keyword. We are going to create a variable tuple which will hold a tuple, and in order to create a tuple you will have to use instead of square braces you will have to use these circular braces. So let's provide it with some elements which are the characters. Let's say A, B, C, and the last one is D. So this is basically a tuple. We have created a variable tuple and any other word here. So in order to create a tuple, what you just need to do is you will have to use the circular braces instead of square braces, right? So if you will use square braces, it will become a list. So let's print the type of this tuple variable. So after running this program, you will be able to see that it will display class tuple. So just like class list, this is a class tuple, and tuples are basically just list, but you cannot write the assignment operator in tuples. So let's create another tuple t1, and let's say I want to add only one element in it, right? so we are going to add only one element in it. So when I do so, and I will just print out the type of this tuple t1. So when I will do it like this, and when I will run this program, you will notice that it says that this is a class string, and this basically is true because this is a string format. So in order to make it a tuple, so if you are inserting only one element in a tuple, you will have to write a comma here, a very important thing to note. So when you will again run this program, you will be able to see that it gets replaced with tuple, right? So this is how by using a comma you can just create a tuple with one element. So since it's not assignment is not allowed, so you cannot do something like this. This is not allowed in a tuple, right? So let's suppose you want to print some particular elements of a tuple, just like you were using it in strings and list. You can also do this here. So here you can see that 4 will not be included. It does not include the fourth element, so it will display elements from 1 till 3, which you can see here, 1, 2 and 3. Fourth element is not displayed. So now we are going to use tuple assignment to swap two values, right? So we are going to use tuples to swap two values, right? So let's create some variables C and D, which is 5 and 6, right? So if you are a C++ programmer, or if you are a Java programmer, you know that if you want to swap the values of two variables, so after swapping, the value of C will become 6 and the value of D will become 5. And in order to do the swapping, you will have to use the temporary variable which will hold the value of C, and then only you can assign it, right? But in Python you can do it very simply. What you just need to do is you will need to just use tuple. So the format will be something like this. So we are just going to write 6 comma 5. So now the value of C will be 6 and the value of D will be 5. So I'm going to write here values swapped. So this is how you can swap two values, a very simple and a very intuitive method to swap two values. This is basically a tuple because you can see there are two circular braces, and remember the number of variables here and here should be equal, or else it will give you some error. So let's now print the value of C and the value of D to see whether the values are swapped or not. So you can now see that 6 and 5 is the output. That means the values have been swapped.